Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the LetterWinner Pod. I'm really excited about this episode. Joined today by LeeAnn Bagby, two-sport athlete at the University of Kentucky, former rifle letter winner, and member of the softball team. LeeAnn, how are you today?
I am doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Let's jump right in.
All right.
So you're in Bardstown, you work in Elizabethtown, you're
Yes.
at Whiskey House. Take
Yes.
me back to graduating from college. What was your major? Did you have a clear idea of what you wanted to do after graduation? Did you have an idea of what you wanted to do going into UK? And did that plan survive your senior year?
No to any of the above. I knew what I was going to do going into college. I was convinced I was going to go to law school. I wanted to do international law. My undergrad is in political science with a area of specialization in international or comparative politics and a minor in Russian.
Wow.
Russian because there was still a Soviet Union when I was there, although it did fall apart my junior year. I really wanted to take Japanese, but UK didn't have it as an option at the time. And so I was convinced that was the path right up till graduation, and then realized I don't want to be an attorney. I did a brief internship with the General Assembly, and it was the year that the corruption Operation Boptrot happened, and it just killed the urge for me. I'm like, nope, I'm out. I don't want anything to do with that. So that was kind of the end of my political aspiration or my law school aspiration at that point. I graduated from college and went on to do my master's at UK. I went to the Martin School and finished out my master's with a specialization in quantitative analytics and went to work for the Council of State Governments, ironically, what was shaping up, at least initially, to be a career bureaucrat. And when my fiance, now husband, moved to Cleveland, and I went up with him, there wasn't a lot of think tanks for me to go to work for up in Cleveland. And that's how I found myself in human resources, which I would have never thought in a million years that would have been a career choice for me. But 20 something years later, here I am.
I'm familiar with the Martin School. I'm a poli-sci major undergrad from UK as well. Did not finish and get my minor, but took 4 semesters of French in college, and then I kind of put the brakes on it and decided I was just going to focus on political science and football. Did the Patterson School of Diplomacy, did that exist while you were at UK, or did that program come after?
No, it was there, but I think really in its infancy. And it wasn't so much a program where you could enroll as it was almost like a designation of sorts. It's kind of hard to explain, but it didn't exist the way it does today, because I would have 100% chased that down for sure.
Listening to some of your background, I definitely see some opportunities for collaboration. You're in HR for a distillery in the heart of the Bourbon Trail. How did you get there, and what's your role?
It's funny, my actual background in human resources is not distilled spirits. It's global manufacturing. I've worked for big companies like Nestle and Alcoa and Metulsa, which is automotive manufacturing. And the owners of Whiskey House, David Mandel, John Hargrove, and Dan Lind, recruited me away from where I was working at the time. And I admit I'm a Kentuckian, but the bourbon industry is kind of a tight group. They all kind of know each other. And my background doesn't seem to align with that. As luck would have it, the Whiskey House is the most technologically advanced distillery in the US. It's unlike any of the other distilleries. They don't do tours. It's not open to the public. It is a customer focused distillery. And what they were looking for was someone in HR who had more traditional manufacturing experience, Six Sigma, lean manufacturing, those standardized inline processes. That's really what they were looking for. They didn't want someone who had the more traditional bourbon background where you have hospitality centers and tours and all of that stuff.
Too much waste, LeeAnn.
There you go. The 7 types of waste. I turned them down the first couple of times they wanted to interview me because I thought, this is not a good fit. I don't get it. Because I was used to having really big facilities. Like at Metulsa, I think I had 4 countries and 10,000 employees.
Wow.
And I'm like, why are you so interested in this? And what they wanted was someone who could build that HR infrastructure from the ground up and take it to the next level and build that more traditional kind of manufacturing background. Honestly, it turned out to be the best career move I could possibly make. It's technically my first exposure into distilled spirits, but it's been a great one. Check out their webpage or even their social media, their socials in LinkedIn, and you can kind of see what the owners are trying to do. And it's a pretty remarkable place.
How has the industry changed in the short time that you've been with them? With you coming with outside bourbon industry experience, are you seeing a shift in the type of employees Whiskey House is hiring?
That's a great question. The owners of Whiskey House, they're probably 3 of the most knowledgeable men. They were honest with me when they interviewed that huge spike that happened during COVID was an artificial spike. It was unique to the pandemic, the industry would have to level set. They said this is going to be a spike, and then when it comes down, there'll be a couple of years where the industry has to reset. And that's exactly what's happened. The piece that I think a lot of people weren't prepared for is the effect of tariffs.
Yeah.
So a lot of our customers produce for Canada, they produce for the European markets, and it has created a huge slowdown across the entire bourbon industry right now. What you see is a lot of manufacturing is getting pushed into the back half of the year because it's a little bit steeper climb right now in the market. It's been a challenge, but we're starting to see some of that aged product, some of that aged juice that's been in the warehouses starting to move. That's when we'll start to see things build back up again. I used to joke that I must be cursed because when I was with Alcoa, that's when 9/11 happened, and that was an aerospace industry, and you know what it did to the aerospace industry for a few years. And then when I was with Metulsa, which was automotive, you had the pandemic, and then the crashing of the automotive movement, and now I'm in distilled spirits. I'm like, good Lord, maybe it's me.
So you were a two-sport athlete at UK. You were on the rifle team. You also were on the softball team before it was a recognized varsity sport for UK.
Yes.
Do any of those skills and characteristics that you refined during that time translate? If so, how have they translated for you in your personal life as well as professional?
To be honest with you, to say that you are a college athlete, it opens doors. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't. To say you're on the rifle team, it shocks people because it's not a commonly known sport in terms of what that is. So there's a lot of, what do you twirl rifles? No, man, that's not what that is. It's been an eye-opening experience, but I will say in a couple of places where I've been, there's an acknowledgement that to be a college athlete, to have that discipline, to be able to go the 4 years, to get your letterman ring, to be able to say you were a captain, it shows a lot of tenacity, and it shows employers that you have a lot of diligence. And I have to say, even now, I'm a huge soccer and football fan. My two boys play kind of high level soccer. My oldest is actually over in England playing. When I watch, especially during football season, I look on the jerseys for that designation of having graduated. I look for the captain's bands.
They do mean things, and they're incredible accolades to have. By the luck of the draw, I did not know that you were a captain. That's a big theme that we embrace amongst the LetterWinner community. So we'll have to figure out a way, LeeAnn, to make sure we put some respect on your picture on the website when we get that added and put that captain designation there, because that's well earned. Let's go back to, I'm assuming, some of those formative years. How did you start shooting, and when did you know your trigger finger was elite?
I would be remiss in saying that my skills were elite like they are today.
Oh,
The athletes that are coming in today are truly world class. They're Olympians, junior Olympians. Back in '89, when I came on, this was maybe Coach Harry's 6th or 7th year. He had come
wow.
in. He had come in from Georgia, and at the time, he was struggling to recruit athletes to the program. UK was not an elite program at that time. Your elite programs were Murray State, WVU, like those were the big ones. And he was looking for a few walk-ons, and I did come on as a walk-on. So I grew up shooting my whole life, and so it was an easy fit for me to get in. But 3-position small bore and air rifle, they are art, is what they are. It is learning to be so still, and it is learning to be so locked in that you learn to shoot between the heartbeats. I don't think a lot of people realize that when they're watching it.
It's
The,
incredible.
the level of concentration, the level of stillness, because you're not shooting with scopes, you're shooting with just iron sights, but your X ring is literally the size of the bullet hole itself. And so your total target size is maybe the size of a silver dollar, maybe a little bit bigger, and you're shooting 50 plus feet away. And if you flinch, if you blink wrong, you miss the target entirely. And that level of precision it's impressive, to say the least. Air rifle even more so, just because lighter gun, it's even more susceptible to the yips. And so you yip and you're not hitting anything. So it was that, for me, I think, was the hardest part. I think if you had a background in shooting, if you came from a 4-H background, the shooting sports programs are huge. Up north at the time, they had a lot more shooting clubs, and those are becoming more common. So I would say I was firearm adjacent. But those skills kind of translated. I was looking for something to do when I came on campus, and I wanted to play softball. This opportunity presented itself. It was an incredible opportunity that gave me so much. But it's interesting when I look at where Harry started, because I would have been in those early formative years, when his first big recruits were coming in the door. And it was remarkable to me to watch that progression. It happened fast for him once he started climbing. And so the year that he won his first national championship, I'm screaming in the office and running around, and people have thought I'd lost my mind. It was hard to explain why I was so excited. I got to tell you, the first time I went into the university bookshop and found gear for the shooting team, I was over the moon, because that didn't used to be a thing.
Did they have any names on the back? Were there some NIL dollars being exchanged?
No, but you know what? I got to tell you, some of the shooters he's got today, they're Olympian level talent. They're legit. The teams that I came up with, we were good in the day. We won the conferences we were in. Um, I was part of teams that won the Great Lakes Conference. I think it was much smaller than today than it was. I think somewhere tucked in a trunk are a couple of awards, but it's not what it is today. And it's fun because I watch it. They stream it now for you, and they have so much pageantry to it. And it's a completely different sport than it was 30 years ago.
You referred to Harry. Harry Mullins has been affiliated with the UK Rifle program since 1982 as a student
Yeah.
athlete. He's been the coach of the rifle team since 1987. Talk
Yes.
about Harry, the longest tenured coach at the University of Kentucky. Makes him an elite coach.
So the version of Harry that I met was a young coach with no budget, no big name talent. But he knew what he wanted to do, and he knew that he could. His own background, if I remember correctly, sorry, Harry, if I get it wrong, he came up through the shooting sports programs in Georgia, and he himself was a credentialed and very, very successful competitive shooter. And I think what made him great, he knew that he would have to build a foundation for that program to grow. And that's exactly what he did. And he built it shooter at a time. And so whether you came in with your own gear, your own leathers, your own rifles, or whether you were someone like me who was like, wait, I got to wear what? He was equally patient, and he was equally invested in you being successful. And so I never minded competitions, but occasionally in some of the bigger competitions, like we would go up to West Point or even Annapolis, they were overwhelming. As opposed to the smaller ranges where you had 10 shooters on a line, 8 shooters on a line, you might have 50, 60, 80 for some of these bigger spots. And I just remember being so intimidated. And, Harry was so good at almost that Hoosiers moment of, they measure the gym and say it's the same in our gym at home. It was the same thing. And so I think that's what's made him successful. Today, he can honestly look back on a program. He can truly say, I built it from nothing. And he's right. He did. He built it from basically all walk-ons, coming off of farms and coming off of 4-H shooting clubs where you didn't have the kind of firearms they have today. Those rifles are expensive, and the shooting leathers and all of that stuff. When I was shooting, we didn't have matched anything. We had hand-me-down gear unless you brought it with you or bought it yourself. Now when I watch them, they're top of the game. And I think he is not recognized to the degree that he needs to be for what he's done with that program, because he built it literally one shooter at a time. And you just don't see that anymore. Not that kind of patience.
I had a chance to meet Harry a few years ago at the UK Hall of Fame ceremony. He was there. You talk about world-class shooters. There's obviously been a lot of great shooters come through the UK rifle program, but I had the opportunity to see the interaction between him and Henrik Larsen, one of the most decorated shooters in the world. I thought it was very special, very unique opportunity to kind of be a fly on the wall. Talk about one of UK's greatest one and done athletes in Henrik Larsen and his impact on the rifle program.
I think anytime you're able to bring that kind of talent, one, if I remember correctly, he was from Norway. That sound right?
That's
Norway?
correct.
When you're able to bring in that kind of talent and those kind of programs, you've leveled up. I think the tide for Harry really had started turning even sooner than that in terms of bringing people in. But to bring in international athletes who are born and raised and truly 100% enmeshed in that shooting culture is huge. It's huge. He's brought in several other international athletes since then who have continued to raise the bar. It's amazing to me, back in the day, to shoot a perfect score was unheard of. Now, these guys can do a couple of them in a season, and they're a whole new level. Today's LeeAnn would have never made that team. He's raised the bar that high. But I'm very proud of having been part of it and having been part of his building years. So I think for me, that's probably the thing I'm proudest of, is that we were a small group, but we hung in there and helped him build.
That's really cool. They didn't get the results that they wanted this year in the 2026 competition in Columbus, Ohio.
Mhm.
They finished third in their rifle, fourth overall at the 2026 NCAA Rifle National Championships. When you were in school, do you remember the pressure or stress? What were the competitions? What was the atmosphere like when it was time to travel and participate against other teams? What do you remember from some of those competitions?
Well, before I answer that, going back to the 2026 championships, they broke the NC2A record for the aggregate team score going in. So I had really high hopes that 2026 was going to be another year to bring home rings for those guys. It wasn't the result you wanted, but they came in blazing with that aggregate score. So very proud of those teams. But going back, the atmosphere back then, it wasn't as high stakes as it is right now, because we weren't sending entire teams to the NC2A championships. We were sending individual shooters. So we did quite well in our conferences, but in terms of qualifying back in the late 80s, early 90s, we weren't sending entire teams. I think the first team that qualified, ironically, was an air rifle team the first time that UK went to the NC2As to compete. So we didn't necessarily have that pressure. The pressure was a little bit lower stakes. It was about winning the Great Lakes Conference. It was about winning individual matches. If you went back and looked at the old, I'm assuming they've got them on file, but the old Colonel, remember the Kentucky Colonel
Oh yeah.
campus newspaper, you would see blurbs about the rifle team kind of tucked in by like the pizza ads. But we just didn't consistently have the kind of talent that was going to take us to the NC2As. Not then. Today, without question, I mean, they're expected to win. Back when I was shooting, we were sending individual shooters and not teams. It was a different climate for us. And it was a learning curve for him as well, which how do you take these shooters who are not elite shooters? And we weren't then collectively. You had maybe one at the time, one each season. How do you build off of a program again with no budget, with loaner equipment, and get them to the level where they can compete? And it's a testament, honestly, to what Harry has built over the years.
That's awesome to hear that and for you to kind of tie up those loose ends. I want to go back. You said the
Yeah.
word pizza and pizza ads.
Yeah.
Talk about the culture around pizza. I'm an 80s baby. I was born in 87, and I was led to believe that the rise of pizza ran parallel with the popularity of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Talk to me about the popularity of pizza. What was the best pizza place in your hometown? What was the best pizza place on campus?
Well, having lived in other places, I can say that the pizza that was the best in my hometown wouldn't compete today. But back in the day, Pizza Hut had a mean pizza.
Yeah.
And if you read enough books, you could get a free individual pan pizza. At college, it was not very good, but there was a pizza place on campus, and I want to say it was in the Oak Room or close to it of the old Donovan Hall.
Okay.
And they were one of the only places back in the day on campus that would deliver where you could use your meal plan.
That's huge.
Oh, yeah, heck yeah. Back then, it was really big when the weather was crappy and you just didn't want to get out because if you lived on campus, you had to park way over in the old Commonwealth Coliseum parking lot. And so
Yeah.
just to your car was a journey in itself.
Yeah.
There was just no parking on campus. So you were either going to trek across campus to go get food, but if you found the pizza place on campus that would deliver it to the dorm and you could put it on your meal card, you were golden. It's not great pizza, I'm not going to lie. But I could put it on my meal card and I would come to the lobby of the dorm, and that literally was all I expected from it. But I can still see the box itself, and I can't think of the name of it, but it was just a generic like Cat's logo. But it was on the side of campus where Donovan Hall was. I'm pretty sure
You remember how much they cost?
to get a big pizza back in '89 would have cost you like $4.50. And I remember thinking, highway robbery to spend that for pizza, but it was worth it because I didn't have to trek, forever to go get my car from the Coliseum. So like $4.50 for a pizza back then.
What was campus like during that time period?
You
This is
know,
a pre-cell phone era. I'm curious what it was like connecting with people, planning, meeting up with people in the middle of the night. Maybe you had a plan and there was a roadblock and the plans changed. How did you navigate that on campus?
back then, you're exactly right. There's no digital anything. It was pre-cell phone. It was pre-digital, any forms of communication. And so ironically, one of your best means of communication was the Kentucky Colonel, that goofy little college newspaper that they printed,
Wow.
because it would, on the back page, it would talk about the cheap beer nights, who was having them. Like you use that to figure out where people were going to be. I didn't pledge when I was at UK because playing two sports, I just didn't have the time. Shooting was almost a 8-month commitment. Like you started before even classes started, and you would go until the March timeframe. And then Perry would let you have a little time off and you went right back to it again. So I never really had the time to go Greek, which meant I really didn't have that dialed in access to all the good parties. And so I
Yeah.
would have to talk to my friends who were Greek. You would actually have to talk to people. And hey, where are we going Friday night? The big thing on Thursday nights was to go to Richmond, go to the Dog, because they didn't card as much as everybody else. And so that was a big thing. You could be guaranteed to have a good time going to Richmond on Thursday nights. But to actually meet with people, you genuinely had to go find it. You had to go talk to somebody who knew.
Wow. No, like, and that makes so much sense. And, some things don't change. I think even when I was an undergrad, there were still some people that I was aware of that were still traveling, going out to Richmond on some of these weekends.
It was a huge thing to go to the Dog. The Salty Dog was the big one. But that was a big thing. There was still, as crazy as it sounds, a little bit of an element of suitcase college to UK. U of L was definitely a suitcase college back then. So people would flee on the weekends and go home or whatever. And UK still had some of that. I think it's a little bit different today. We looked at Kentucky when my oldest graduated. And first of all, I didn't recognize the campus at all. He ran a track meet. As we were at the track, I was like, but this is where the softball field was. Wait, what? Where did this? Oh, dang, that's a nice softball field. It was kind of nice. As I was finishing my graduate work, they were finishing the library. So I didn't really get a chance to use it. And now the library is obsolete. Like they're already looking to reinvest in it again. So that cycle of build and improve. I get a chance to go back to campus every March for the Beam conference, which is a huge industry conference, the Jim Beam Institute. And it's a good time for me because the campus itself is on spring break. And so I get a chance to walk around and see it, not interrupt anyone or be in the way. So it's kind of nice. But I think it's lost the element of suitcase college that it had back then. There weren't as many things to do, not as many activities. And I think it's just such a gorgeous campus. It's absolutely beautiful campus.
I thought Lee Todd, who was my president when I was on campus, did a good job of taking it to the next level with some new dorms. And then Eli Capilouto comes in and brings in LDR, privatizes some aspects of campus. They get maybe 8 or 9 figures worth of investment dollars to overhaul campus with new buildings. And it's unrecognizable. If someone dropped you off in the middle of campus, there might be a few buildings that you would recognize, but around the dorms and all of those things, you wouldn't recognize them. Speaking of dorms, what dorm did you stay in?
I was in Donovan Hall as a freshman, and that's the same dorm my dad stayed in when he was in campus in the 60s. And he said to me, he's like, well, it hadn't really changed much, has it? Nope. After that, I stayed in Greg Page Apartments until I moved off campus and kind of got my own place. But I loved, but crazy as it sounds, it was not the new dorm. It had seen better days even when I stayed in it, but it was central to so many things. You had the swimming pool, the huge aquatic center. Even back then, we were still hooked up with CATS, the Center for Athletic
Tutorial services.
Tutorial services. Even back in that time period, we were still responsible for meeting with those guys. We met with trainers, who tortured us on the regular. Most of us back at that time were like, dude, come on, man. It's like 7 o'clock on Saturday morning. I really don't want to be in the pool in February. So, but it was close to every place I needed to be for the most part. So it was nice, but it was kind of a dump, if I'm being honest. It didn't have air conditioning. It had those cinder block walls. You had 2 group communal bathrooms, 1 in each wing of Donovan Hall. So it wasn't the sweet experience that my sons or my nieces and nephews have. I'm like, that is nicer than my first apartment.
Yeah, you share one bathroom with another room. They got Tempur-Pedic mattresses in the rooms. It's night and day now.
It's completely different. Mine looked like a college dorm out of like the 70s because it had like no carpet. It had cinder block walls. They're painted like this sickly yellow, and it had this cheap kind of linoleum-ish to it. The windows opened like in. You had the phone on the wall. That was about it. It had 2 teeny tiny closets and the super single little beds, and that was it. That's all you got.
Wow. Yeah, I can picture that. I'm sure you can picture it better than I can.
So it was just it was a really different time. Everything was so manual. You didn't type anything for class. Not really. You had the blue books that you brought in. Everything was paper. Your syllabus was paper. Your calendar was paper. You just had stuff tacked up on the walls everywhere. So it was just a different time.
There was bookstore with actual books. Everything wasn't digital.
Those books were expensive. You would buy a book for $40. But back then, if you're a broke student, $40 a book is, you may as well have been asking for a kidney. And then you would sell it back at the end of the semester and get like $8 for it. But that was your drinking money at the end of the semester.
Sure. What advice would you give to your 19, 20-year-old self entering college or in the middle of your collegiate experience?
I have an older son who's finishing his master's, and I have a younger son who's a sophomore in high school. So the timing for this question is pretty good for me. I would tell them, first and foremost, it's okay not to know what you want to do going in. You don't have to have it locked in. It's okay to give yourself the opportunity to kind of stretch your boundaries while you're in college. I think for me, going out for the shooting team was life-changing for me. It gave me access to a completely different world. I had always played sports, but college sports are different. I would encourage everyone to not be afraid to try out for something, to not be afraid to go do something different, because to me, that's what college is for. Now, as an HR executive, what I would tell people is,
that's a whole different conversation. Your credentials scare people.
You're not wrong. But as an HR professional, the college mom type version of me is like, spread your wings, have fun, enjoy life. The HR professional in me is learn how to be an adult. Learn how to follow rules, at least workplace rules. I cannot tell you how many kids come into the workforce, and I'm being very honest, they're incredibly smart, but they are not socialized for the workplace. They have no sense of, if work starts at 7, that doesn't mean 7:05. If we tell you you can't have your phone on the production floor, don't be surprised if you get written up for having a phone on a production floor. It means don't come in as a college graduate, expect to be making the same as somebody who's been doing that job for 10 years.
Why
And
not,
so
LeeAnn?
you got to earn it. You got to earn your way off the bench. But from an HR perspective, the best advice that I can give people is it's wonderful to be the smartest kid. It's wonderful to graduate with honors. Those are all great things. But being able to learn how to adult with other adults is really important, because whether you like it or not, you've still got boomers, you've still got Gen Xers like me, who are, for the moment at least, we're still sort of helping your trajectory up the ladder. And even millennials, even the older millennials are in that position as well. And so one of the conversations that I've had with my sons and with some of his friends are, you guys really need to work on connecting with other generations better than you do.
You have any idea how can you foster those relationships? So the first thing that comes to mind when you say something like biased, I'm biased, but as the president of the Kentucky K Club, we just had an event with Will Stein and staff a few
Yeah.
weeks ago where we had athletes from 7 decades of play, of performance at the University of Kentucky, men and women. Are there a lot of organizations like that? And how can we help our young graduates with the acclimation skills that you feel like are missing from this generation?
I would say yes. You do still have kind of a wide variety of the generations representing themselves. Now, we're shifting into a more traditional bell curve where you would have Gen Z, and then you would have kind of the boomers who are kind of exiting out, boomers and Xers over here, and then you would have that traditional bell curve with your middle millennials and some of your older Gen Y coming in. So yes, they're all represented. And I think it's incumbent on management, regardless of what generation they fall in, to foster the environment and create. One of the best things you can do is have mentors, and line them up with somebody who has sort of some similar life experiences, and line them up with somebody who has maybe some similar career aspirations as well. To me, that's probably one of the best programs that I've seen in the workplace, is when you invest in mentorship. It's time consuming if it's done right. And it is an investment. It's not just a check the box program that you say you have. You have to train your mentors. You have to invest in teaching them how to be a good mentor. I think those are wonderful programs, but it starts with leadership and finding those ways to connect. While I'm admonishing younger generations to find a way to connect, it's equally incumbent on those of us who are skewing the other side of that bell curve to be approachable and to work with the groups that are coming in. It's both sides of the equation, but I squarely put the onus on leadership to create that environment.
Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the LetterWinner Pod. Had a great episode tonight with LeeAnn Bagby. LeeAnn, thank you so much for sharing your insights. We hope to have you come back and join us again. Come to a football game, some of our other LetterWinner activities. Come home. The K House, the K Club, we miss you.
I would love to do that. Thank you so much. I would love an opportunity to work with some of your graduating athletes.
We'll figure out some ways to get you involved.
That sounds great.